It is a startling statistic, actually. Every 19 seconds, somewhere in the world, a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer. But with modern treatment and early detection, far fewer women and men are dying from the disease. But we need to keep raising awareness, which is exactly what today's guest is here to do. Please welcome a woman on a mission. It's the fabulous Elizabeth Hurley. Thank you. Welcome, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us. As I say, a woman on a mission, and you have been for 27 years. What first prompted you to get involved with raising awareness about breast cancer?
Well, Evelyn Lauder, who was Estee Lauder's daughter-in-law, when I first joined the company, came to me and said, would I help her with a campaign? And I said, yes, of course, what is it? And she said, well, women all over the world are dying of breast cancer and no one is talking about it. And I want to change that. And it's really true that back then, for me, it was 27 years ago, I just recently lost my grandmother to breast cancer. And at that time, nobody talked about it. There was no pink ribbon. There was no Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And when my grandmother was diagnosed, well, first of all, she didn't go to the doctor because she was scared and embarrassed. And when she finally went, of course, it was quite progressed. And even then, she didn't want to talk about it. We weren't involved in talking to doctors or friends. There was no support groups. We didn't really know what was going on. And she didn't make it. And that's what Evelyn Lauder wanted to change when she started the breast cancer campaign and co-invented the pink ribbon. And it is just different. It's very different today. You know, it's still a life-threatening disease, obviously, for many women. But times have changed. We talk about it now.
They have changed so much, haven't they? It makes me think back. My own grandmother had cancer. It wasn't breast cancer that happened. She wouldn't even say the word.
No, they whispered it. It was a dirty word to be, she's got cancer.
Well, you'd always say the big C.
The big C.
Yeah, just growing up, that's all I ever heard.
Yeah.
And I don't, for years, I didn't know what it meant as a child.
No.
You can't believe that now, can you? Like you say, so many conversations, so many groups, so much going on social media. But there's always need for more.
Well, yeah, and more than that. And that, of course, has been vital. And, you know, from our research, we know that it really helps when people feel solidarity with other people and hear their experiences. But also there's been a vast amount of improvements in both diagnosis and treatment in the 30 years that we've been around. You know, 30 years ago, people talked about breast cancer. Now everyone knows there's so many different types of breast cancer and treatments are targeted to that particular cancer instead of everyone being blasted with the same treatment, which probably would have been what happened to my grandmother. Yeah. So there huge advances are happening, but still, as we've just heard, 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer, and people do still die, even though mortality rates have decreased by 41% since the late 80s, which is a huge thing to have happened.
Survival rates are higher, much higher now.
Because it's detected earlier.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the important thing, and that's what you're here to talk about, really, aren't you? The checking yourself. We have to check ourselves.
Yeah, and didn't you get a mammogram for your 40th birthday?
I did. Evelyn Lauder gave me one for my 40th and made me promise to regularly have screenings. Yeah, because it is so important. I mean, that messaging hasn't changed in 30 years, that early detection saves lives. In fact, some of the doctors, the breast cancer doctors I've spoken to, said that 30 years ago, when a woman came to them, their cancer was normally pretty progressed, like my grandmother's. Whereas now, because people know so much more about being screened and self-checking, they're much more likely to have a much earlier stage cancer, which is 90% curable if found early.
Which is important to remember when you're scared.
Of course.
Because I think a lot of women don't actually self-check or even go and get a mammogram because they're scared of getting that news.
Of course they are.
Aren't they?
We all are.
Still, I think, the most...
And I guess that's why the talking about it is so important, isn't it? You know, and you know, on social media, of course, which we're always quick to criticise, but actually, in this instance, can be incredibly powerful.
It can be a force for good, for sure. And I think just for people knowing they're not alone and knowing there's people to talk to, you know, in the same way that, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous helped so many people to know they weren't alone. There was solidarity. I'm pretty sure that...
Did a friend of yours, react to an Instagram post?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they did. During the pandemic, when I couldn't be sitting here with you, everything was done remotely. We did, through our breast cancer campaign, I did an Instagram post telling people the importance of self-checking and advising people to go to a website where a lovely doctor called Dr. Zoe was demonstrating a self-check. And 2 friends of mine had seen my post, both in their 40s, so younger than me, and they both checked themselves for the first time and both found lumps. And both went to the doctor. They were both diagnosed with cancer, but they found it really early. But they would never have checked had they not seen that post. So, in fact, you know, the value of social media can be really put to good.
And there's a bit of a common belief as well, I think, that young women, say under 40, think that it's only women over 50 who get breast cancer. I mean, the prevalence, I think, is higher in women over 50, but young women do actually get it as well. So it's really important that they check because they can't get mammograms until they're 50 either.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And the breast tissue also pre-40 is too dense for a mammogram.
Yeah.
So all you can rely on is self-checking. And in fact, I mean, I've met thousands of women probably who've had breast cancer, and out of my friend group, the majority of them found them themselves. And not always by checking, actually. Sometimes in the shower, soaping.
Yeah.
They said something feels weird. But also, some of the doctors have said that one of the most important things you can also do is actually look at your breasts in the mirror. And sometimes, apparently, you can see a difference.
Another thing that was mentioned to me, and I don't know, some people, I guess, use a sponge or a scrunchie or some kind of thing in the shower, that actually you're probably better to use your hand to soak yourself.
I would
because
imagine,
then you've got, obviously, a direct touch. And what about lifestyle? We know it does make a difference. It's not the complete story by a long chalk, but you clearly, you know, are very sort of vigilant about your own lifestyle.
Well, you know, I think I've been lucky enough to be able to talk to the research guys quite a lot. And they do say that lifestyle can possibly make a difference. I mean, obviously, eating healthily, we know helps. Keeping active, we know helps. And there have been studies that suggest that when there's a lot of cortisol in the body, the stress hormone that's released when you're very tense and stressed, there have been studies to show that, for example, during chemotherapy, if there's a lot of cortisol presence, perhaps the treatment is less effective. Which is, you know, a very grown-up medical way of saying what everybody's always said, de-stress.
Yeah.
So, in fact, having a long bath with a scented candle, taking some time out, actually perhaps could be life-saving, not only making us feel better in the short term.
I see you as a long bath scented candle
I
woman.
love long baths.
Oh, I knew it. I just felt it.
Yeah, no, I do like it. But you know what's also quite interesting? I did a cortisol test with this research scientist who was doing this particular bit of research. And I'd imagined my stress levels were at the lowest when I was lying on the sofa watching TV or having a chat. We did a cortisol test. Then I went for a walk. We did a cortisol test. Stress levels much lower after the walk. Because apparently when you're lying down, sometimes your mind gets very active.
Absolutely.
And you start
I'm a great
worrying
believer in
about whatever you're worrying about. So exercise.
Get out and get
active.
a walk, it's the best. And so you will be continuing your work as an ambassador for Estee Lauder breast cancer campaign. It's not something you're going to give up after 27 years, that's for sure.
Not until we're out of business, which means women aren't dying.
Yeah.